The chamber hums before it breathes. Morning light spills through the high windows of the Rayburn building, soft gold against the marble, gilding every surface that has ever heard a promise. The air feels ceremonial, like the opening act of a modern trial. Journalists adjust their lenses. The click of cameras becomes a rhythm, mechanical and expectant. Crockett sits composed at the long mahogany table, papers neatly arrayed, pen aligned to the edge. Her silence isn't passivity, it's orchestration. Every second she waits is strategy. Every heartbeat is calculation. Across from her, Elon Musk leans back in his chair, but relaxed, almost languid. The world's richest man in a congressional seat, an emperor in exile. His smirk isn't arrogance, it's armor. He wears disruption like a tailored suit. The room swells with presence. Aides, senators, analysts, the invisible chorus of governance is backstage. Microphones glow red. Every whisper is a record. Every breath is on tape. The chairwoman clears her throat. This session of the Subcommittee on Technology and Civic Integrity will come to order. Her voice carries the authority of someone who's seen too many hearings. End in noise and too few end in justice. Musk's fingers drum against the table. 1, 2, 3, 4. A rhythm of restlessness. Crockett glances up. Their eyes meet. It's not hostility. It's recognition. Both understand what this is. A duel in daylight. One wields power coded in silicon. The other accountability written in law. For a moment, time folds. Every great oversight session echoes here. Tobacco, oil, banks, now algorithms. Different industries, same sin. The claim of neutrality while steering the world from behind a curtain. A young aide leans in and whispers something to Crockett. A final update. A name. A timestamp. She nods once, barely perceptible, as if confirming a chess move she's planned for weeks. The gavel falls. Representative Crockett, you have the floor. She stands steady, deliberate. Her voice carries the weight of facts sharpened into weapons. Mr. Musk, your network holds the digital town square of modern governance. Yet its design, your design, determines who gets to speak and who disappears. Today we ask whether that power serves the people or simply reflects the man who owns it. The line lands like a quiet explosion. Musk smiles, the kind of smile used to hide impatience. I look forward to clarifying that misconception, he says smoothly. Crockett doesn't look down. I'm sure you do. A flicker runs through the room, anticipation, unease, hunger for spectacle. Staffers shift in their seats. Cameras tighten their focus. The stage is set not for testimony but for collision. Outside the building, the city moves indifferent. Commuters, schoolchildren, vendors. Inside, history sharpens its pen. The first question is yet to be inquired, but already the air knows something irreversible is about to be stated. The chamber awakens fully. Not with applause, but with the slow, steady realization that truth once spoken here cannot be unspoken. The screens glow like confessions waiting to be read. Let's start simple, Crockett begins, her tone crisp but measured. She doesn't raise her voice. She never has to. Authority, when grounded in evidence, doesn't need volume. Mr. Musk, you've claimed that your network operates as a digital mirror, neutral, reflective, democratic by design. Musk nods, leaning forward slightly. Correct. X reflects reality. If reality offends you, that's not an algorithmic issue. The statement ripples through the room, half philosophy, half provocation. He knows the line will trend before lunch. Crockett tilts her head as if appraising an exhibit. A mirror doesn't edit what it reflects, she replies. Your algorithms do. A faint murmur runs through the chamber. The session is barely 10 minutes in, and the air already carries static. On the monitors behind her, she projects a series of internal reports, blurred names, timestamps, datasets spanning months. Words like emotion trigger testing, engagement, optimization, and content polarity amplification flash across the A screen. These were internal discussions. Between your engineers, she continues. Notes about how to keep users emotionally active longer, how to trigger outrage cycles for engagement metrics. You stated X was a mirror, but mirrors don't monetize fury. Musk doesn't blink. All social media optimizes for engagement, he counters. You're describing the internet, not a crime. His tone is almost conversational, the calm of a man accustomed to chaos. Crockett glances toward the committee, then back to him. "We're not discussing the internet," she says. "We're discussing influence. Political, emotional, and electoral influence, achieved through behavioral design." He leans back again, unhurried. "Representative if people choose what they engage with. You can't hold me accountable for governance's curiosity." A quiet tension fills the space between them, that thin, electric thread between rhetoric and responsibility. Crockett presses a button, advancing to the next slide. A chart appears. Voter sentiment data mapped alongside algorithmic weight adjustments, red and blue lines crossing like heartbeats on life support. "This isn't curiosity," she says softly. "This is calibration." For a moment no one speaks. The audience, staffers, journalists, onlookers, sits suspended in the glow of numbers that look too organized to be coincidence. Musk exhales through his nose, an almost imperceptible smile. "You're assuming causation where there's only correlation. That's the fundamental flaw in these so-called analyses." Crockett nods as though she expected that line. "Correlation doesn't trend in perfect rhythm with polling shifts. Not unless someone writes the music." Her words linger like a slow-burn fuse. Musk's hand tightens slightly around the armrest. The smallest tell. The chairwoman interjects, sensing the exchange tightening like a wire. "Let's keep this focused on factual clarity." "Exactly," Crockett replies, never looking away. "The facts are clear. The data shows systematic amplification of divisive content during election cycles, followed by suppression of non-polarizing speech. It's a design choice, not a glitch." Musk's gaze hardens, though his tone stays airy. "Representative, if you think controlling speech equals fairness, you're arguing for censorship, not governance." She doesn't miss a beat. "And if your company controls the reach of speech, that's not governance either. It's private governance without consent." The chairwoman lets the silence hold. Cameras zoom. Staffers whisper. Outside, trending algorithms begin their invisible work. Crockett lowers her eyes briefly, then meets his again. "This isn't about silencing voices," she says. "It's about identifying who built the microphone and who decides when it's turned off." The room doesn't move for several seconds. Even the hum of equipment seems to pause. In that stillness, the roles are defined. Musk, the architect of the system; Crockett, the custodian of consequence. He offers a tight smile, neither surrender nor victory. "Then I suppose you're here to judge the architect." She gathers her notes. "No," she says evenly. "Just to make sure the blueprint is read aloud." The next chart loads. The session deepens. The mirror begins to crack. The interruption lands like a strike of static through the chamber. Crockett's question, mid-flight, measured, already drawing blood, is cut off by Musk's voice. Sharp, amused, perfectly timed for the cameras. "Representative, that's a gross misunderstanding of how code works." His tone is part lecture, part performance. A few members smirk. Others glance down, pretending not to pick a side. She doesn't flinch. Her eyes rise slowly from the notes, like a judge reconsidering the sentence. The silence after his words stretches, deliberate, dangerous. It's the kind of silence that rearranges power in real time. "Then enlighten me," she says. The room tilts. Musk adjusts his tie, leaning forward, hands folded. "Algorithms don't have politics," he explains, his rhythm controlled, CEO precise. "They respond to data, to people. If bias exists, it's in human behavior, not in the network." The staffers behind him nod as if on cue. The cameras pan, searching for reactions. Anything that can be clipped, edited, reframed. Crockett doesn't interrupt. She lets him finish every line, every carefully constructed syllable meant to sound like reason. Then she presses a single button on the tablet before her. The monitors behind the dais flicker to life. Charts, screenshots, metadata trails glowing in blue and white. "Then explain this," she says. A graph climbs like a heartbeat. One algorithmic change, one subtle reweighting of engagement, timed with a political rally. The spike in visibility favors one ideology, one candidate. Her tone remains calm, surgical. "Your mirror seems to have a preference." Musk shifts. His face doesn't betray irritation, only calculation. The quick recalibration of a man who has built empires from chaos. "You're cherry-picking," he says. "Every company runs tests. Correlation isn't control." Crockett leans back, not smiling but close. "And yet," she replies, "your test subjects were the American people." A soft murmur ripples through the audience. The journalists in the gallery stop typing for a beat. It's no longer a session. It's an inquest. Musk's tone drops lower, quieter, his words aimed less at her and more at the record. Representative, if you regulate speech under the guise of fairness, you end up silencing governance itself. She lets the irony breathe. And if one man's system shapes what governance hears, whose voice remains? The question hangs between them like smoke. No one moves. In that silence, the session becomes theater. Truth versus charisma, law versus ownership. Crockett knows she's not trying to win applause. She's trying to carve a fact into history before it's recoded out of existence. Musk knows it too. He stares back unblinking, not defeated but recalculating. The look of a man who doesn't lose, only delays. The chairperson bangs the gavel to restore order, but the spell lingers. The power dynamic has shifted, not visibly, not officially, but enough that everyone in the room can feel it. Crockett closes her folder, her expression unreadable. She's stated enough for the transcript to carry. Musk leans back, smirking again, but the performance costs him. The cameras capture the moment, the microsecond where certainty becomes defense. Outside, the hallway fills with aides already drafting tomorrow's headlines. Inside, the silence holds. The interruption, meant to dominate, has instead exposed control's weakness, the need to be heard above truth. The question lands like a verdict disguised as curiosity. Mr. Musk, Crockett says, her voice almost gentle. If governance is trending, who gets to edit the trend? It's not shouted, it's delivered. Every syllable precisely paced, calibrated to echo in the transcript and the nation's conscience. The room freezes. Even the air seems to lose momentum. Journalists stop typing mid-sentence. A camera's red light flickers. The silence feels physical, like pressure against the chest. Musk straightens slightly, a man too familiar with high-stakes silence to let it rattle him. "We don't edit trends," he replies. His words are calm, almost tender. People choose what matters. The system just follows them. Crockett steps closer to the microphone. But people can't choose what they never see. It's not an accusation. It's an anatomy of power. The monitors flash again. Screenshots of internal moderation directives, keyword lists, network-wide visibility toggles, each labeled temporary measure, each carrying the unmistakable fingerprints of editorial intent. "You told the public you liberated speech," she continues. "But liberation without transparency isn't freedom. It's manipulation wearing a costume." Musk exhales, softly amused. "You sound like someone who thinks speech should come with government instructions." She tilts her head, eyes narrowing just enough to register disbelief. "And you sound like someone who thinks responsibility ends at the upload button." A ripple of unease runs through the chamber. Members of the committee shift in their seats, caught between ideology and evidence, spectacle and duty. He leans forward, voice lowering, confidential now. "Do you really believe truth can be engineered? That humans are so fragile they need protection from their own curiosity?" Crockett's gaze holds steady. "Truth doesn't need protection," she says, "but governance does." For the first time, the veneer of composure on Musk's face falters, not broken but hairline fractured. The smirk is still there, but less certain, more reflex than conviction. She slides another document across the table, a message log between senior moderators, time-stamped hours before a national debate. A single phrase is highlighted, "Pause visibility." "Too volatile." "Who decides volatility?" she asks quietly. No one answers. The chairwoman looks down as if the words themselves are too heavy to meet head-on. The audience remains spellbound, part courtroom, part theater, part moral reckoning. Musk studies the paper for a long beat. "I can't control every decision made in a global system," he finally says. "We're not gods. We're engineers." "Engineers of what?" Crockett presses. "Information or illusion?" The pause that follows is longer than the question deserves, the kind that grows roots. He doesn't respond. Not because he's cornered, but because he knows silence can wound more subtly than speech. Across the chamber, one of the aides mutters to another, "This is the clip." He's right. The exchange will live longer than the session. Replayed, reframed, reinterpreted until it becomes digital scripture. Crockett leans back slightly, her tone cooling, transitioning from confrontation to reflection. Governance isn't a market, Mr. Musk, it's a covenant. And covenants can't be optimized. He raises an eyebrow. You can't legislate human nature. Maybe not, she replies. But we can hold accountable those who profit from shaping it. For a fleeting instant, the camera catches his expression, the faint trace of respect beneath the irritation. Two players at the same table, both aware that power has no permanent owner, only temporary custodians. The chairwoman taps the gavel softly. Let's move to the next question. But no one moves, not yet. The echo of Crockett's challenge lingers, not in the microphones, but in the private reckoning of everyone who heard it. The spectacle dissolves into something quieter, more dangerous, understanding, because beneath all the data, all the deflection and all the noise, her question still breathes in the air. If governance is trending, who edits the trend and who benefits from the silence? The room fractures, not loudly, not theatrically, but like glass under pressure. The session that began as a forum has become a fault line. Ideology seeps through the cracks. Senators shift, aides whisper, and the illusion of bipartisan purpose splinters into instinctive defense. Some side with the innovator, the man who built rockets and networks and myth. Others find their faith leaning toward the representative. The quiet gravity of someone who still believes truth has borders. The chairwoman's voice cuts through the hum. Order, please. Her gavel hits once, not for control, but for survival. The chaos has an intelligence of its own. Musk leans back again, posture relaxed but jaw tight. Congress, he says, doesn't understand how innovation works. You can't regulate curiosity. You can't legislate creativity. A senator from the majority nods vigorously. We can't punish success because we fear change. The phrase lands rehearsed, the kind of moral cover politicians wear when they don't want fingerprints on consequence. Crockett doesn't interrupt. She lets them talk, the chorus of power rationalizing itself. Her hands rest flat on the table, the embodiment of stillness amid spin. The silence she maintains becomes a blade sharper than argument. When she finally speaks, it's not a rebuttal but a question to the room. If innovation excuses everything, what's left to govern? The senator's smile falters. Cameras swing from one side to another, hunting tension. The spectacle has evolved. No longer Musk versus Crockett, but conviction versus convenience. Musk seizes the moment, voice steady and persuasive. If you want America to compete globally, you don't suffocate its visionaries. You don't treat platforms like criminals for giving people a voice. He looks directly at Crockett. You call it manipulation. I call it evolution. She studies him, not angry, not impressed. Just aware. Every empire calls itself evolution until the bill arrives, she replies. A gasp from somewhere in the back. Not outrage, admiration. The words land like judgment. Musk leans forward again, tone softening. Representative, history doesn't remember who filed the subpoenas. It remembers who built the future. Her reply is immediate. And sometimes it remembers who warned it first. The committee murmurs, some amused, others uneasy. The ideological line is now visible, painted in body language. Who leans forward to defend, who leans back to doubt. The chairwoman raises her voice again. This is not a campaign stage, but that's exactly what it's become. Every line, every smirk, every tremor in the air is already being clipped into sound bites. The session is now theater, and both leads know their marks. Outside, the story begins to metastasize. News tickers flash partial quotes. Hashtags bloom in real time. Algorithm gate, your Crockett vs Musk, your do free speech or fraud. The public is writing its own script before the official one ends. Back inside, the dialogue continues. Procedural now, technical. Terms like data transparency and governance frameworks replace the moral vocabulary that once filled the room. The session slides toward bureaucracy, toward paperwork. But underneath, the damage is permanent. Crockett senses it. The moral fatigue of institutions pretending not to understand what they already know. She glances around the table, at faces hiding behind neutrality. Some avert their eyes. Others hold hers in brief silent apology. The chairwoman adjourns the session temporarily. Papers shuffle, microphones click off, and the room exhales. Musk stands shaking a senator's hand, polite, confident, already spinning the narrative in his favor. Crockett remains seated, watching, absorbing. She knows this is how accountability fades. not with denial but with applause. As the crowd disperses, a reporter leans toward his colleague. "Who do you think won?" The other shrugs. "Depends who edits the clip." And just like that, the fracture completes itself. Ideology splitting into content. Justice dissolving into discourse. The session may resume in an hour, but something larger has already adjourned. In politics, as in algorithms, control isn't about truth. It's about who gets to write the summary. The verdict arrives before the transcripts do. By dusk, the session is no longer a government proceeding. It's a viral spectacle dressed as governance. Clips scatter across timelines like shrapnel, each fragment edited into its own morality tale. One version crowns Musk the defiant innovator, besieged by bureaucrats too timid to understand genius. Another casts Crockett as the last defender of civic truth, holding the line against a billionaire's empire of noise. Both versions spread faster than fact itself. The media divides its coverage with surgical precision. On one network, Musk's clipped smile loops endlessly, accompanied by headlines about free speech under attack. On another, Crockett's calm stare freezes mid-question, the image of unyielding scrutiny. Truth has become aesthetic, and aesthetic is the new argument. In Austin, Musk's team celebrates not in boardrooms, but on encrypted group chats filled with memes, analytics, and spin. Engagement up 240%, one message reads. "We control the narrative cycle." They don't mean it metaphorically. The cycle is the product. In DC, Crockett's staff works under flickering fluorescent lights. Aide after aide scrolls through trending topics, faces lit by the glow of the very algorithms they're fighting. They've won the moral battle but lost the bandwidth war. Every truth they publish drowns beneath the noise of commentary, parody and tribal loyalty. By midnight, Musk tweets out, or posts, rather, a single line to his millions of followers. "Sunlight is the best disinfectant." The phrase surges across feeds, repurposed, deified, weaponized. Within minutes, it's printed on shirts, meme templates, and digital banners. The irony, that he controls the sunlight, goes unnoticed. Crockett doesn't reply publicly. She sits in her office, jacket off, heels abandoned near the desk. The building is quiet except for the hum of machines, the ones that never sleep, the ones that turn public record into data streams. She reviews the transcript, red pen marking each exchange like a teacher grading civilization's last exam. Her phone buzzes with messages, support, outrage, admiration, warnings. She reads none of them. Instead, she looks out the window, the Capitol dome glowing against a restless night. She knows how this will go. Hearings fade, trends move on, power endures, but history, slow and stubborn, keeps its receipts. Outside, a protest begins. Small at first, scattered signs illuminated by streetlights. Some chant for regulation, others chant for freedom. Both sides carry phones aloft, streaming, documenting, feeding the very machine that made them angry. By dawn, the footage loops on every major outlet. The crowd outside has doubled, then tripled. The headlines shift from tech session fallout to digital governance in crisis, and yet inside the building nothing has changed. The same walls, the same gavel, the same echo of control disguised as conversation. Musk, watching from his private suite, smirks as his network trends globally. He understands the paradox better than anyone. In an age where attention is power, outrage is profit. Crockett closes her laptop. No victory speech, no cameras. Just the slow realization that in the empire of algorithms, truth doesn't die. It drowns. Quietly, efficiently, beautifully, the public verdict is delivered not in courts or Congress, but in clicks, and tonight governance is just another post waiting to refresh. The corridors of the Capitol are empty by the time she leaves. Crockett's footsteps echo against the polished marble, each one measured, deliberate, as if walking through the aftermath of an earthquake that only she can still feel. The portraits on the walls watch her in oil and silence. Faces of reformers, dissenters, legislators who fought their battles with parchment instead of pixels. Their eyes seem to ask whether history ever truly learns or merely repeats itself in higher definition. The fluorescent lights hum above her, cold and steady. In her hand, the folder feels heavier than it should. Pages of testimony, data, fragments of truth trapped in bureaucratic language. She knows how easily it will be buried under further review. A janitor passes by, nods politely, unaware that the woman he greets just spent 6 hours arguing over who controls the nation's perception of reality. She nods back, grateful for the ordinary. A moment of human rhythm untouched by narrative. At the far end of the hallway, a television mounted to the wall plays a muted news recap. She stops. The Chiron reads, "System hearings ignite online firestorm." Beneath it, split screens. Musk's confident smile on one side, her questioning stare on the other. The anchor gestures dramatically. A panel of commentators argues over tone, optics, strategy. No one mentions the data, the leaks, or the line that started it all. Who gets to edit the trend? Crockett watches the screen without sound. The visuals tell her enough. The truth she tried to reveal has already been repackaged into spectacle, diluted into debate points. A nation scrolling faster than it listens. She exhales and turns away. The camera's eye no longer follows her here. In these corridors, the performance ends and the loneliness begins. The solitude that always follows moral work. She doesn't feel victorious. She feels necessary. Outside, rain begins to fall, faint and rhythmic against the Capitol steps. She steps into it without opening her umbrella. The air smells like stone and static, a cleansing she didn't ask for but accepts. Across the plaza, the Washington Monument stands in silhouette, tall and silent, like a metronome marking the slow pulse of a weary governance. Her aide catches up, breathless. "Ma'am, they're saying you won the session." Crockett smiles faintly, eyes still on the monument. "No one wins hearings," she says. "I just buy time before the next one." The aide hesitates, unsure whether to respond. She doesn't need one. The line isn't cynicism. It's realism. The kind that comes from seeing how truth competes with entertainment in the marketplace of outrage. As they descend the steps, lightning flickers somewhere over the Potomac, illuminating the wet marble for an instant. It looks like a flashbulb, a reminder that even now, someone somewhere is filming. Crockett pauses at the bottom, looks back at the building and whispers, to herself, to history, to the silence that keeps score. Every empire begins with invention and ends with denial. The rain intensifies. The aide opens an umbrella over her, but she waves it away. The water streaks down her face, cleansing, unmasking, honest. For the first time that day, she allows herself to feel it, the fatigue, the grief, the faith that refuses to die. She takes one last look at the Capitol's lighted windows, then walks into the night. Behind her, governance flickers on another screen. Ahead, only the rain and the faint echo of a promise. That truth, though drowned, always finds air again.